On 7 News tonight, all vantage points around Sydney Harbour almost full. An incredible 1.6 million expected to welcome the new year. From the west to the Opera House to the beaches, we've got the city's celebrations covered. Also tonight, highway patrol officers bashed by teenagers at an RBT as they find the P-plate driver. After years of accusations, Bill Cosby charged with drugging and raping a woman. He's released on $1 million bail. Prices going up on just about everything for the new year, except it appears petrol, the cheapest it's been in years. And we catch up with the Big Bash fan who produced this catch of the day.
This is 7 News at 6 with Melissa Doyle.
Good evening. More than 1 million people have packed harbourside vantage points, eager to catch the world's first major fireworks display of 2016 and arguably the world's best. With less than 6 hours to go, this is the scene around the harbour. People are gathering at key locations from Barangaroo to South Head and all available points in between. Mrs Macquarie's Point is at capacity and others are filling up quickly, with many getting in early to secure their place for a memorable new year.
Forget New York, London, Shanghai, Sydney, and its Harbour Bridge is the star of New Year's Eve for billions around the world, and for a fortunate 1.6 million, the ultimate place to watch the fireworks spectacular. By midday, McMahon's Point was packed to capacity. Tents were pitched, tables unfolded and picnicked. The weather could not be more perfect to view all the events leading up to the midnight show.
Creating that point of difference that makes people walk away going, that was the best ever and that was the most amazing event, is obviously the challenge.
There's an aerial display at 8 p.m. Then for the first time the bridge will star in a welcome to country, transforming into a blazing Aboriginal flag at 8:40, followed by the first fireworks show at 9 p.m, capped off with the Harbour Lights Parade before the big one, the Sydney New Year's Eve fireworks at the stroke of 12. Finding a ringside seat has become a kind of amazing race, with the big prize a posse harbourside.
We get the first spot, we're the first team, the first runner, 8 of us, just run here. Perfect.
Mrs Macquarie's chair sounds odd to most foreigners, but they trust their virtual instincts.
We search from Google.
Devotees of Mrs Mac say this is as good as it gets, but the Kirribilli clan say they are closer. Although these guys might be a little too close, there's a high tide at 2 a.m. There'll be 100,000 here by midnight, though not a cross word from this 10-year viewing veteran.
There's nothing like it. Being under the bridge, it's fabulous.
Many return here from the farthest corners of the globe.
Yeah, I've seen it like 10 years ago, but I love Sydney, so that's why I came back.
At Circular Quay,
well, London's good for the fireworks, but Sydney's world renowned, isn't it?
Well, we see them every year at home, the first one that comes on.
If you haven't bagged a spot already, don't even think about bringing a car into town. CBD streets including Elizabeth, George and Pitt will be closed from 7 o'clock. The Kyle Expressway is closed till 4 a.m. The Harbour Bridge will close from 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. and the Anzac Bridge will close eastbound between 8:30 and 9:30 and 11:30 to 1 a.m. But there'll be 1,000 extra trains and 3,500 extra buses. There'll also be many roads closed in North Sydney and harbourside suburbs like Woolwich, Pyrmont and Darling Point. Now, if you live in any of these areas, think carefully before you drive out, because you might not be able to get back in. The Opera House hit capacity at 3 o'clock. Soon their faces will join a sea upturned in awe. What are you going to see tonight?
We're going to see the fireworks!
Brian Seymour joins us now from Kirribilli. Brian, now you've been talking to people there, the ones that arrived very, very early. How are they holding up?
Well, much better now, Mel. The cool changes come through, and you can probably hear the aerobatic display above me going on right now from ace pilot Matt Hall, and he'll be back in the air in 2 hours. But of course, everyone's here for the main show. Now, Mel, consider this. The fireworks themselves cost $905,000, but overall the Sydney New Year's Eve Spectacular brings in $133 million for the state's coffers. Uber drivers and hotels are cashing in. Certainly tonight, their fees up to 350% higher than usual. If you need any tips on how to get around, what's on and where to go, you can find all the information you need on our website. Mel.
Fantastic, Brian. Have fun. Thank you. And thousands of people have already secured their vantage point on the harbour. Peter Fegan is among them. And Peter, is there any room left on the water?
There is, Mel, but it is filling up fast. There's expected to be around 5,000 recreational vessels on the harbour for the fireworks display. The RMS has also said this will be the biggest year yet. We've only been out a short time and already we've seen close to 2,000 boats and a few stand-up paddleboards. Mel?
Police and maritime officers, Peter, I imagine keeping a pretty close eye on everyone's behaviour?
That's right, Mel. Maritime officers will be out in force tonight. It is the busiest night of the year, so it's all hands on deck. They want to remind all skippers that everybody on board must have a life jacket handy and to stay out of timed exclusion zones. Now, the police will also be out in force. They'll be conducting random breath tests on Sydney's waterways, and they want to remind skippers if you do have a drink, be responsible, stay under the limit, because if you don't, you will be caught. Mel?
Some really good advice. All right, Peter, enjoy it out there. Thank you. And despite the crowds on and around the harbour, there are plenty of others who will welcome in 2016 closer to home. From Campbelltown to Parramatta and our beaches, there are 9 p.m. and some midnight fireworks. And for one Sydney sider, the last day of 2015 is extra special.
Born on New Year's Eve 100 years ago, Frederick Pickles sure knows how to pull a crowd. The World War II veteran had the party of his century at Bankstown RSL. His secret to long life is a few cheeky ones.
They had 6 stubbies last night, like an 100-year-old man drinking 6 stubbies.
There's plenty more beer to be had today. Buying by the case is the popular choice in Marylands.
Got enough for everyone?
No, that's just for me. It's every man for himself on New Year's Eve.
Well, it's rather been the West Day. Enjoy ourselves here. We love the West.
The early birds got the best gazebos at Coogee Beach ahead of the fireworks. Some have been holding a spot since 4:30 this morning.
It's going to be a long day.
Yes, but doesn't matter.
The water was warm for one final swim or dump for the year, and there's still time for a couple of extra push-ups.
Normally we'd be here a lot earlier, but we had a bit of a New Year's Eve.
The oysters are being shucked and the bubbles put on ice for a soiree at the Coogee Pavilion.
So how many of these do you reckon you'll be pouring tonight?
Oh, I think we'll sell over 1,000 bottles, I think.
These are the first drinks then?
Yeah.
Cheers!
Cheers.
The fireworks have been carefully packed and are ready to launch at Brighton Le Sands. The picnic rugs and shades have taken over the East Esplanade in Manly.
It's a lovely spot to watch the fireworks and the kids can have a swim.
In southwest Sydney, there'll be sky shows by the lake at Chipping Norton, Campbelltown and Carmsley Hill City Farm in Abbotsbury. Penrith will also have its own fireworks at 9 p.m. and midnight. These hot tricks are only for the brave. The Dauntless Movement crew will be live tonight in Parramatta. Back in Bankstown, old Fred's got a word of advice for young revellers heading out.
Just behave yourself.
Do as Fred said. Well, Jessica Dietrich joins us live from Parramatta. And Jess, just what else then is in store tonight?
Well, Mel, this is where you can watch the biggest fireworks display outside the city, and these guys are pretty excited, aren't you guys? Now they're going to launch on several barges along the river from 9 p.m, along with a pyrotechnics jet ski performance. There are heaps of free rides, there's food stalls and entertainment up until then, and there'll be lots of time for mums and dads to get the little ones home, tucked away in bed, pop the champagne and welcome in the new year themselves, Mel.
Sounds fantastic, Jess. Thank you. Have fun out there. Now, we do hope the weather does not disappoint all those families waiting patiently for the stroke of midnight. Angie Asimus is at Barangaroo for us. And Angie, it looks absolutely stunning there. Will this fine weather hold out?
Well, Mel, the harbour is just sparkling at the moment under big blue skies, and the good news is once the sun does go down, it is going to look just as spectacular. We are expecting a fine night with lovely light winds. For the 9 p.m. fireworks, the temperature should be a balmy 22 degrees, and for the midnight show, still a fairly manageable 20 degrees. Now, New Year's Day is looking pretty perfect as well. I will be back with the rest of the day's weather shortly, Mel.
All right, as Matt Hall flies over, that's the good news we wanted. Thanks so much, Angie. Now, thousands of extra police officers are being deployed around the city tonight to keep revellers safe. Leonie Ryan is at Surrey Hills tonight. Leonie, what are police targeting?
Mel, well, this is more than a crowd control operation. No doubt officers will be cracking down on alcohol-fuelled violence, but on top of that, given the security climate, they'll be keeping an eye on any suspicious activity, and all available resources have been called in.
A police presence like no other, undoubtedly the biggest night of the year. Additional officers on foot, horseback, on the water and patrolling our public transport system, keeping an eye on the massive crowds of people that will line Sydney Harbour.
We'll be ready for anything if it happens.
As recently as last week, police uncovered an alleged terror plot by two men to target the naval base at Woolloomooloo, one of a number of raids this year as police counter growing local and global threats.
Well, the threat level is high. I think everyone knows that. So we're approaching it with great vigilance.
But security experts warn there's always the danger of a lone wolf attacker.
It's that kid who woke up this morning and decided to do something crazy that the police just don't know about and really can't do much about.
But it hasn't deterred the crowds.
Sydney seems a pretty safe place to be, and I've only been here for 4 or 5 days.
I've never felt a threat. I've always felt very safe. I think it's just going to be a really good night.
Police say they haven't received a specific terror threat targeting the Sydney fireworks, but are ready to deal with anything should they receive security intelligence that suggests otherwise.
And revellers should stay alert too.
Enjoy a couple of drinks, but don't get too drunk, so that you are aware of what's going on around you.
Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
And senior police say they won't tolerate their officers being treated as punching bags following a bashing at Blacktown. 3 officers manning an RBT stop were allegedly attacked after fining a P-plater.
A senior constable, his nose bloodied and badly broken. One of 3 police officers who copped a battering on the front line last night. A 17-year-old driver who'd been stopped at a random breath test has been charged over the attack.
Can you tell us what happened this morning?
How annoying are you guys, man?
We are there to save lives. We are there to keep the community safe. It will not be tolerated. We are not a punching bag for hoons.
Police stopped this Tarago after it exited the M4 on Reservoir Road at Blacktown at 2 a.m. The young driver was fined for not displaying P-plates, not producing a licence and breaching his passenger limit. According to police, he didn't take it well.
The individual threw the infringements out the window and immediately assaulted the officer.
18-year-old Tarani Mackie is one of 2 passengers accused of jumping out and joining in on the bashing. 2 other officers were also injured as they deployed capsicum spray to restrain the trio.
Mate, are you going to apologise for assaulting the police last night? As the injured officers recover at home, their colleagues will be out in record numbers over New Year's celebrations. More than 800,000 drivers are expected to be breath tested by Sunday. Ashley Brown, 7 News.
So with thousands of extra police officers on duty tonight, Assistant Police Commissioner Mick Fuller joins me now from outside the Sydney Police Centre. Assistant Commissioner, thanks for your time. Do revellers have any cause of concern for their safety tonight?
Look, absolutely not. We've got over 2,500 additional police resources in and around the city. We plan for 12 months for New Year's Eve to make sure it's a safe and family-friendly event. Now, I know we can't stop every crime from happening, Mel, but it's important that we have police around to respond quickly to that.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the main concerns? I mean, I guess the one that we worry about are these lone wolf-style attacks that we hear about.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And again, you know, we work tirelessly with our Counter-Terrorist Command, our federal bodies such as Australian Federal Police to make sure all that intelligence is dealt with quickly and we respond quickly. And we've seen a number of arrests this year. But again, unfortunately, we can't stop every crime from happening, so it's about the response. And we have our Tactical Operations Unit actually out in the field. We have police that are briefed, they're resourced, they're armed, they're ready to respond to any incident.
Well, thanks, and thanks for all the extra guys and girls that are on duty tonight. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your time tonight. Assistant Commissioner Mick Fuller joining us live there. Labor. Well, welcome back. These are live pictures from the 7 News helicopter looking over Sydney Harbour. You can see most of the key vantage points are pretty much packed, and there's not a lot of room left on the water either. An estimated 1.6 million people are expected to watch on as the City of Colour comes to life at 9 p.m. and again at midnight. Well, these are live pictures of Barangaroo from the 7 News helicopter. It's actually the first time that people have been allowed onto the new site for New Year. You did, though, have to buy a ticket to get access, but it will have one of the best vantage points for tonight's spectacular. Brian Seymour is at another cracker spot. He's at Kirribilli with 100,000 others. Brian, the show's already started.
Yes, we've seen the aerial display and the fire tugs are coming out shortly for the water display, and then something truly unique. For the 1.6 million gathered around the harbour side, the millions more watching at home, for the first time, the Harbour Bridge is going to be involved in the Welcome to Country. It's going to burst into a giant, dazzling, blazing Aboriginal flag at about 8:40. Then at 9 o'clock, the first fireworks show, that runs for 8 minutes, and then the big one at midnight. This is an extravaganza. 100,000 pyrotechnics, 25,000 shooting comets, 11,000 shells. That's 2,500 more than last year. Organisers promising this will be the biggest and best yet. A lot of people here think it's the first major city to have this show. Auckland is the first. They go off at about 10 o'clock, but surely this one here in Sydney is the best in the region, probably in the world. After that, they all have to struggle to find their way home. There are thousands of extra buses and taxis on. If you're not sure how to get home, all the details you can find on our website.
Or just camp out another night.
There's a few tents here, so a few people will be doing that.
Thank you so much, Brian. Come back to you a little bit later on. Sydney is counting down to the new year with a stunning final sunset for 2015. You can see the capacity crowd there at Mrs Macquarie's Point. They're all enjoying balmy conditions with temps in the low 20s, and that should ensure near perfect conditions for the world famous fireworks. Hope that helps. The day's finance is coming up in 7 News, plus the clock ticking down, just hours to go till the Harbour's New Year's Eve extravaganza.
And clear skies ahead for the fireworks. Your full forecast is coming up next, live from Barangaroo.
We are just hours from welcoming 2016, and Brian Seymour is at Kirribilli. He's right under the bridge, prime position. Brian, how are they going to amaze us tonight?
Well, believe it or not, Mel, the name of the man who produces the Sydney New Year's Eve Spectacular is Nye Coffee, N-Y-E Coffee. And on the fireworks side, he's saying this will be the best yet. 2,500 extra shells this year fired from the bridge, 7 barges on the water, and all 4 sails of the Opera House. On the soundtrack side, I can tell you there'll be a bit of Brian Ferry, some Lenny Kravitz, some Maroon 5, and a dash of Uptown Funk. When it's all over, 1.6 million people will be jostling to get home. You need to be patient. There's an extra 1,000 trains and 3,500 extra buses. And if you need any tips on how to negotiate your way around and what's on and where to go, you can find them on our website. So, Mel, I guess from me, it's time to say Happy New Year to you and everyone watching, and have a wonderful 2016.
And to you too, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for checking in tonight. Now let's have a look at finance. The share market ended its 9-day run of gains. The ASX 200 dropping 24 points, and one Aussie dollar tonight buying just over 73 US cents. Now Angie is at Barangaroo as crowds gather for the big show. Angie, how's the view looking for tonight?
Oh, well, Mel, the crowds are well and truly streaming in here now. It is looking absolutely stunning. The picnic blankets are out, but perhaps this time-lapse footage gives you the best idea of the scene here. This was taken from the other side of the harbour as the gates opened here at 6 p.m. and people took up their positions. 10,000 people paid for these seats, $79 a family, and it's the first time this point of the harbour has ever been open to the public for New Year's Eve celebrations. Thankfully, conditions were absolutely perfect for the great wait. We reached a top of 27 degrees today, and it is still a very pleasant 23 at the moment. Conditions were pretty perfect wherever you celebrated today. The warmest spots were Penrith and Campbelltown with a top of 30 degrees, 27 for Liverpool and Parramatta, 26 for Manly. On the satellite, there's a big deck of cloud that's been streaming down into the state's central interior from that monsoon trough. Thankfully, the embedded low has weakened, so the falls are substantially lighter now. If we look ahead to the rainfall map, you can see that most of those totals are falling inland. New South Wales, pretty dry, just the chance of a shower or two in the far northeast corner of the state, 1 to 2 millimetres. Now, tomorrow around the country, the first day of 2016, warm in Perth, 34 degrees, Adelaide reaching 35. Much cooler in Melbourne as that cool change arrives, a top of 37 degrees. Brisbane, sunny and a top of 29. If you're on the water tomorrow, expect northeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. Now, the New Year's Day in Sydney, top of 26 degrees and partly cloudy, looking pretty good. Across the suburbs, 31 degrees for Richmond and Penrith, 28 at Parramatta. Looking ahead to the 7-day outlook, we've got partly cloudy conditions on Saturday and Sunday before the clouds return from Monday. In our western suburbs, it's a similar story. Temperatures dropping right down to 23 degrees on Monday. So, Mel, there you go. 2 hours until the first fireworks display. The countdown is on.
Certainly is, Angie. Happy New Year. Thank you. And that is 7 News for this Thursday and 2015. From the entire team, we hope you have a fun and safe night and wish you all the very best for next year.